I am Gerard, 58 years old, a retired carpenter who worked hard for 35 years. Today started like any other day until my daughter Amanda showed up at my door. With a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, she handed me an envelope. "I have a surprise for you, Dad," she said. I opened it expecting perhaps concert tickets or a gift certificate. Instead, I found myself staring at a debt of $450,000. My hands began to shake. Before I tell you about the biggest shock of my life, let me know where you're watching from and hit that like button if you've ever felt used by someone you loved and trusted. My story begins in rural Michigan, where I grew up in a family that knew the value of every dollar because we had so few of them. My father worked at the local factory, and my mother cleaned houses to make ends meet. We lived in a small two-bedroom house with a leaky roof and drafty windows. I learned early that if I wanted anything in life, I would have to work for it myself. I started apprenticing as a carpenter when I was 18. College was never an option for me. My parents couldn't afford it, and honestly, I was better with my hands than with books. I found satisfaction in creating something tangible in the smell of fresh-cut wood and the precision of a perfectly made joint. At 23, I met Laura at a friend's barbecue. She was beautiful, smart, and had the most infectious laugh I had ever heard. We married 6 months later in a small ceremony in my parents' backyard. Laura worked as a school secretary, and together we saved enough to put a down payment on a modest house on the edge of town. It wasn't much, but it was ours, and we spent weekends fixing it up together. A year later, Amanda was born. The moment I held my daughter for the first time, I made a promise to myself that she would never know the kind of struggle I had known growing up. She would have opportunities that I could only dream of. She would have a better life. I worked overtime whenever I could. Weekends, holidays, it didn't matter. Laura would sometimes complain that she hardly saw me, but I was determined to provide for my family. By the time Amanda started school, I had my own small carpentry business. It wasn't making us rich, but we were comfortable. As Amanda grew, it became clear she was smart, really smart. Her teachers praised her abilities, and I swelled with pride at every parent-teacher conference. When she was in high school, she started talking about college. Not just any college, but the kind with ivy-covered buildings and centuries of history. "Dad, do you think I could get into Princeton?" she asked one night at dinner. I didn't know much about Ivy League schools, but I knew they were expensive. "If that's where you want to go, sweetheart, we'll figure it out," I promised. And figure it out we did. Laura and I emptied our savings account. I took out a second mortgage on the house. I even sold my prized vintage truck that I had spent years restoring, all to make sure Amanda could go to the college of her dreams when she was accepted. The day we dropped her off at Princeton was one of the proudest days of my life. My daughter, the daughter of a carpenter, with calloused hands and a high school education, was going to an Ivy League school. I remember hugging her goodbye, trying not to let her see the tears in my eyes. "I'm so proud of you, Amanda," I told her. "You're going to do great things." After Amanda left for college, things changed. Her calls became less frequent. Her visits during breaks shorter. She always had excuses. Study groups, internships, new friends. I understood. She was building her own life, and I was happy for her. But I couldn't help feeling a twinge of sadness when weeks would pass without hearing her voice. After graduation, Amanda moved to New York for a job at a marketing firm. She came home for Christmas that first year, but stayed for only 2 days. The following year, she didn't come home at all. Something about a work emergency. I sent her presents that she thanked me for via text. 5 years ago, Laura was diagnosed with breast cancer. It was aggressive, and despite treatment, we lost her just 8 months later. I was devastated. Amanda flew in for the funeral, but left the next day. She had an important meeting she couldn't miss. The years since Laura's death have been lonely. I retired from carpentry after 40 years, my body too worn out to continue climbing ladders and carrying lumber. The house feels too big now with just me in it, but I can't bear to leave. Laura and I built our life here. Her flower garden still blooms every spring just the way she planned it. Amanda and I speak maybe once a month now, usually brief calls where she tells me how busy she is. I've seen her in person only on Thanksgiving and Christmas for the past few years, and even those visits feel rushed and obligatory. I try not to complain. I know young people have their own lives to live. So when Amanda called out of the blue last week and said she wanted to come visit, I was overjoyed. She mentioned bringing me a special gift, something important she wanted to share in person. I spent 3 days cleaning the house, making sure everything was perfect. I even drove to the specialty grocery store 2 towns over to get the ingredients for her favorite childhood meal, chicken piccata with homemade pasta. As I prepared for her visit, I allowed myself to hope that maybe things were changing. Maybe Amanda was finally ready to reconnect, to be a part of my life again. Maybe she had realized how short life truly is after losing her mother. I imagined long conversations over dinner, maybe even her staying for the weekend, instead of just a few hours. I let myself believe that my daughter was coming back to me. I had no idea what was really coming. The morning Amanda was due to arrive, I woke up earlier than usual. I had already cleaned the house from top to bottom, but I still found myself straightening picture frames and fluffing couch pillows. I wanted everything to be perfect. I made the pasta dough from scratch, the way Laura had taught me, letting it rest in the refrigerator. I marinated the chicken and prepared the sauce, timing everything so it would be ready shortly after Amanda arrived. I even cut fresh flowers from Laura's garden and arranged them in a vase for the dining room table. At precisely 2 in the afternoon, I heard a car pull into the driveway. Looking out the window, I saw a sleek black BMW I didn't recognize. Amanda stepped out wearing a designer dress and sunglasses that probably cost more than my monthly pension. Her hair was different than the last time I'd seen her, highlighted and styled in a way that made her look like a stranger for a moment. But when she smiled at me as I opened the door, she was my little girl again. "Dad," she exclaimed, giving me a quick hug. She smelled of expensive perfume. "Amanda, sweetheart, I'm so happy to see you," I said, fighting the urge to hold on too long. Come in, I've made your favorite." "That's so sweet, Dad," she replied, already pulling out her phone and checking something. "Sorry, just need to answer this work email. Can't escape it even on weekends." Throughout dinner, Amanda's phone buzzed constantly. She would glance at it sometimes, typing quick responses. Our conversation stayed superficial. She told me about her apartment in Manhattan, her recent promotion, the exclusive restaurants and clubs she frequented. I noticed she never asked about my life, my health, or how I was managing since Laura died. "This is delicious, Dad," she said, though she'd barely touched her food. "But you didn't have to go to all this trouble." "It's no trouble. I don't get to cook for anyone these days." "You should get out more," she said absently, eyes on her phone again. "Join a senior group or something." After dinner, we moved to the living room. Amanda declined dessert and coffee, saying something about watching her carbs. She seemed fidgety, checking her watch repeatedly. "So, how long are you staying?" I asked hopefully. "The guest room is all ready. I put fresh sheets on the bed." "Oh, I can't stay overnight," she said quickly. "I have brunch plans in the city tomorrow, but I wanted to see you and, well, give you something." Her hand went to her designer handbag, pulling out a thick manila envelope. My heart leapt. Was this the surprise she'd mentioned? Maybe tickets for us to go somewhere together? Or perhaps photos from her life that she wanted to share? "Dad," she said, her voice suddenly serious, "I have a surprise for you." She handed me the envelope. It was heavier than I expected, stuffed full of papers. I opened it carefully, still smiling, still hopeful. Inside were not photos or tickets. They were financial statements, credit card bills, loan documents, all with my name on them. "What is this?" I asked, confusion replacing anticipation. The first statement showed a credit card debt of $78,000. The second was for a personal loan of $135,000. The third was an auto loan for a luxury car, $92,000. There were more, much more, all adding up to nearly $450,000. "Amanda, there must be some mistake," I said, my voice shaking. "These aren't mine. I never took out these loans." "That's what I need to talk to you about, Dad," Amanda said, her voice steady, almost rehearsed. "These are in your name, but I'm the one who took them out." I stared at her, the words not making sense at first. How could she have taken out loans in my name? Why would she do such a thing? I don't understand, I said, feeling dizzy suddenly. "I needed the money for investments," she explained as calmly as if she were discussing the weather. "And for living expenses in New York. You know how expensive it is there." I looked down at the papers again, the numbers swimming before my eyes. $450,000. More than my house was worth. More than I had made in the last 10 years of my career. "But how," I managed to ask, "how did you get loans in my name?" Amanda had the audacity to look annoyed, as if I was being difficult on purpose. "I had access to your social security number, your date of birth, all your information," she said. "I've had it since college when you gave me copies of your tax returns for my financial aid applications. It wasn't hard." My hands were shaking so badly now that papers slipped from the envelope onto the floor. I couldn't breathe. My own daughter had stolen my identity, had burdened me with debt that would take several lifetimes to repay on my fixed income. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Because the payments are past due," Amanda said. "The collection agencies are getting aggressive. They'll be coming after you soon, and I thought you should know." The room seemed to tilt sideways. My daughter, my only child, had committed fraud using my name, and now she was simply informing me of the fact, as if telling me about a change in the weather. I didn't yet know this was only the beginning of the betrayal. After the initial shock began to subside, I took a deep breath and tried to process what Amanda had just told me. I needed to understand exactly what had happened. "Amanda," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "I need you to explain everything. Start from the beginning. When did you first use my information to take out loans?" She sighed, looking at her manicured nails. "It started during my last year at Princeton. The money you gave me for tuition and expenses wasn't enough. I needed more to keep up with my friends." "Keep up? We gave you everything we had," I said, the hurt evident in my voice. "Everyone else had nicer clothes, went on better spring break trips, lived in the good part of campus," she explained dismissively. "I couldn't be the charity case." I thought about the second mortgage on my house, the extra jobs I had taken, the retirement savings I had dipped into. Also, my daughter wouldn't feel less than her wealthy classmates. "So you took out a credit card in my name." "Just one at first," she admitted. "Then after graduation, I needed more. The job in New York paid well, but not enough for the lifestyle I deserved." The word "deserved" hit me like a slap. What had happened to the humble, grateful girl we had raised? "Then I met some people who were starting a tech company," she continued. "They needed investors. It was going to be the next big thing. I could have tripled my money." "Let me guess," I said, feeling sick. "It failed." "The market shifted," she said defensively. No one could have predicted it. But by then I'd invested over 200,000, all the money I'd borrowed in your name. And the rest? I asked, gesturing at the pile of statements. What was that for? Living expenses. Rent in Manhattan is insane. Plus clothes, transportation, networking events. You have to spend money to make money, Dad. I picked up an American Express statement showing charges for Gucci Four Seasons Hotel first-class flights. This doesn't look like investing to me, I said quietly. You don't understand how it works in my world, she snapped. Appearances matter. Connections matter. I set the papers down and looked my daughter in the eyes. Why didn't you come to me when the business failed? Why keep this secret until now? For the first time, Amanda looked slightly uncomfortable. I thought I could fix it. Find another investment, make the money back. But then the interest kept piling up, and now... She trailed off. Now the debt collectors are after you, I finished for her. They're after you technically, she corrected. The accounts are in your name. I felt like I'd been stabbed directly in the heart. The casual way she said it, as if shifting the burden to me, was the most natural thing in the world. Amanda, I said slowly, do you understand what you've done? These are crimes. You could go to jail. She waved her hand dismissively. No one goes to jail for this kind of thing. Not people like me. People like you, I echoed. Educated, connected. I made a mistake, that's all. And now I need you to help me fix it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Help you fix it, Amanda. I'm 68 years old on a fixed income. I can't pay off $500,000 in debt. 450,000, she corrected, as if the difference mattered. And you have the house, you could sell it, move into something smaller. Or one of those retirement communities. The house. The home where I'd raised her. Where Laura and I had built our life together. Where every corner held memories of the woman I had loved for 40 years. This is your mother's home, I said, my voice breaking. Mom's been gone for 5 years, Dad, Amanda said coolly. It's just a house. You don't need all this space anyway. I looked at my daughter, then really looked at her and wondered who she had become. Where was the little girl who had once made me handmade Father's Day cards? Who had cried when she accidentally broke her mother's favorite vase, who had talked about wanting to make the world a better place? Why? I asked simply. Amanda looked confused. Why what? Why would you do this to me? I'm your father. I gave you everything I could. For a moment, something flickered across her face, something that might have been shame. But it was quickly replaced by a practiced smile. Dad, you always said I was your greatest treasure, your best investment, she said smoothly. You said you'd do anything for me. Well, this is the anything. Your assets are my assets, right? We're family. Her words were like acid burning away the last of my illusions. She was using my own love against me, twisting it into something ugly and transactional. That's not what family means, I said quietly. Look, I didn't come here to argue, Amanda said, checking her watch again. I came to let you know about the situation before the collection agencies start calling. They're getting pretty aggressive. One of them threatened to put a lien on your house. When did they start contacting you? I asked. A few months ago. I've been trying to handle it, but they won't stop. Some of them are talking about legal action now. A few months, I repeated. You've known about this for months, and you're only telling me now. Amanda had the decency to look slightly embarrassed. I was hoping to fix it myself, but now I need your help. By selling my home, I said flatly. It's the simplest solution, she replied. You get a small condo, we pay off the debts, and this whole thing goes away. No one has to know what happened. Your credit gets fixed. I get a fresh start. Win-win. I felt a pain in my chest, then sharp and insistent. At first I thought it was just the emotional shock, but it intensified quickly, radiating down my left arm. Dad! Amanda's voice sounded distant suddenly. Are you okay? You look pale. I tried to speak but couldn't find the breath. The room started to spin. Dad! Amanda's voice was alarmed now. She reached for her phone. I'm calling an ambulance. As I slumped back in my chair, one thought circled in my mind. My own daughter had betrayed me so completely that it was literally breaking my heart. The ambulance arrived quickly. Amanda followed in her car as they took me to the emergency room. The doctors told me I had experienced a mild heart attack, brought on by extreme stress. They kept me overnight for observation running tests to assess the damage to my heart. Throughout my hospital stay, Amanda remained at my side, but her concern seemed superficial. Between checking on me, she was constantly on her phone, typing furiously, stepping out to take calls. I caught snippets of her conversations in the hallway, discussions about payment plans and legal options. Even as I lay in a hospital bed, she was still focused on the debt. The doctors say you'll be fine, she told me the next morning. Just need to avoid stress. I almost laughed at the irony. Amanda, I said weakly, we need to talk about what happens next. I've been thinking about that, she said, putting her phone down for once. The house should sell quickly in this market. I've already talked to a real estate agent friend who can list it as soon as you're discharged. I stared at her in disbelief. You contacted a realtor while I was having a heart attack. I'm being proactive, she said defensively. We need to move quickly before the collection agencies escalate things. I'm not selling my house, I said firmly. That's not happening. Amanda's expression hardened. Dad, be reasonable. You can't afford to pay this debt any other way. I didn't incur this debt, I reminded her. You did. But it's in your name, she countered. Legally, it's your responsibility. Because you committed fraud, I said, my voice rising despite the pain in my chest. A nurse poked her head in. Everything okay in here, Mr. Thompson? You need to keep your blood pressure down. Amanda gave the nurse a practiced smile. Everything's fine. Just a little family discussion. After the nurse left, Amanda leaned closer to me. Dad, think about this logically. If you don't pay, your credit will be ruined. They could take your house anyway through legal action. And if you try to claim identity theft, you'd have to press charges against me. You wouldn't do that to your own daughter, would you? The manipulation in her voice was unmistakable now. She was counting on my love, on my unwillingness to see her face consequences, to get herself out of the mess she had created. I need time to think, I said finally. I need to see all the documentation, understand exactly what we're dealing with. Amanda seemed relieved. Of course. I have copies of everything. We'll go through it when you get home. The doctor discharged me the following afternoon with prescriptions for heart medication and strict instructions to avoid stress, a cruel joke given my circumstances. Amanda drove me home in silence. I felt like a passenger in my own life being carried along by forces beyond my control. When we arrived home, Amanda helped me inside and then immediately spread the financial documents across the dining room table. There were even more than I had initially seen. Credit card statements, loan agreements, collection notices, all bearing my forged signature. This one is the most urgent, Amanda said, pointing to a notice threatening legal action on a credit card balance of $65,000. They're talking about a lawsuit if we don't respond within 30 days. I examined the documents carefully, trying to make sense of the tangled web my daughter had created. As I looked more closely at the dates and amounts, something didn't add up. "Amanda, these go back further than your senior year of college," I said, pointing to a credit card opened 8 years ago. "You said that's when it started." She shrugged. "Maybe it was earlier. I don't remember exactly." "And what's this?" I asked, holding up a statement for a student loan consolidation. "I thought we paid your student loans." Amanda suddenly became very interested in her phone. "We need to focus on the most pressing debts first," she deflected. "Answer the question, Amanda. Did you take out additional student loans in my name?" "I needed more money than you gave me," she admitted reluctantly. "Princeton is expensive." A terrible suspicion formed in my mind. "Show me your college transcript," I said. "What? Why?" "I want to see your grades, your degree. Show me." "That's ridiculous. It's at my apartment in New York." "Look it up online then. You must have access to your academic records." Amanda's face flushed. "This isn't relevant to our current situation." "It is if you're lying to me about where the money went," I insisted. "Show me proof you graduated from Princeton." After several tense moments of silence, Amanda's shoulders slumped slightly. "I left after sophomore year," she admitted quietly. The room seemed to tilt again. "You dropped out after everything we sacrificed." "I wasn't learning anything useful," she said defensively. "The real education was in New York, making connections, getting real-world experience. So all the money we sent for tuition junior and senior year, the student loans in my name, I needed it to get established in Manhattan," she said, as if that explained everything. I thought about Laura working extra hours at the school to help with Amanda's college fund. I thought about selling my vintage truck that I had lovingly restored, all for a degree our daughter never earned. "What about this tech company you invested in?" I asked. "Tell me about that." Amanda shifted uncomfortably. "What about it? Name, business plan, anything." She mumbled something about a social media platform for luxury brands. "Did it ever actually exist?" I pressed. "Of course it existed," she snapped. "It just didn't work out." "Show me any documentation, investor agreements, business plans, anything." Amanda's silence told me everything I needed to know. The investment was likely just another lie to cover her spending. As I looked around my dining room at the table where we had once shared family meals, now covered with evidence of my daughter's deception, memories began to surface. Amanda borrowing my wallet to buy gas, then returning it with my credit cards in different slots. Asking to use my social security number for a school form. Taking my mail to help sort it when she visited. The betrayal went deeper than I had initially thought. This wasn't a desperate mistake or a one-time bad decision. This was years of calculated deception. "I'm tired," I said, finally pushing away from the table. "I need to rest." "But we need to make decisions," Amanda protested. "The collection agencies won't wait. They've waited this long. They can wait until tomorrow." I went to my bedroom and closed the door, needing space to think. From the other room, I could hear Amanda on the phone, her voice low and urgent. I couldn't make out the words, but her tone was not that of someone racked with remorse. As I lay in bed staring at the ceiling Laura and I had painted together 30 years ago, I realized that the daughter we had raised, the daughter we thought we knew, was gone. In her place was a stranger who saw me not as a father to love, but as a resource to exploit. The pain of this realization was worse than the heart attack. The next morning I woke early, my mind clearer than it had been since Amanda's arrival. I needed to take control of the situation before it completely overwhelmed me. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table planning my next steps. Amanda was still asleep in the guest room. My first action was to call my old friend Jack. We had worked construction jobs together in our younger days before he went to night school and eventually became a lawyer. Though he was retired now, I trusted his judgment. "Gerard, what's going on?" Jack asked when he heard the strain in my voice. "You sound terrible." I explained the situation as succinctly as I could, each word painful to say aloud. Admitting my daughter's betrayal to someone else made it frighteningly real. "Jesus, Gerard," Jack said when I finished. "I don't even know what to say." "I need advice, Jack. Legal advice." "This is elder financial abuse," he said firmly. "It's a form of identity theft and it's a serious crime. You need to talk to a specialist in this field. I know someone who can help." He gave me the name of Sarah Thompson, a lawyer who specialized in protecting seniors from financial exploitation. I wrote down her contact information, promising to call her office as soon as they opened. "And Gerard," Jack added before hanging up, "don't let Amanda pressure you into anything. Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. You understand?" I assured him I wouldn't, and ended the call just as I heard Amanda moving around upstairs. I quickly tucked Sarah's information into my pocket. Amanda came downstairs dressed in designer loungewear, her hair perfectly styled, despite having just woken up. She headed straight for the coffee pot. "We need to finalize our plan today," she said without preamble. "I called my realtor friend, and she can come by this afternoon to assess the house." "I already told you I'm not selling," I replied calmly. Amanda set her coffee cup down with more force than necessary. "Dad, be realistic. You don't have a choice." "There are always choices, Amanda." "Not in this case," she insisted. "The debt is in your name. You're legally responsible. Your only option is to sell the house and pay it off. Or report the identity theft to the police," I countered. Her eyes widened momentarily before narrowing. "You wouldn't dare. I'm your daughter." "A daughter who stole from her father," I said sadly. "A daughter who lied for years." "I made some mistakes," she admitted, though her tone lacked genuine remorse. "But sending me to jail won't solve anything. The debt will still be there." "There are other options," I said. "I'm going to speak with a lawyer." "A lawyer?" she scoffed. "You can't afford a decent lawyer. And any lawyer will tell you the same thing I'm telling you. The debt is yours to deal with." "We'll see," I said, refusing to be intimidated. Amanda's demeanor changed, then her voice softening in a way that reminded me painfully of when she was little and wanted something. "Dad, please. I'm trying to help you. This solution makes the most sense. You're getting older. This house is too big for you anyway. You could get a nice little condo, be closer to town. It would be better for you." I almost laughed at her transparent attempt to reframe her self-serving demand as concern for my welfare. "I'm fine right where I am, thank you." She stood up abruptly. "I need to check my email. We'll talk more later." After she left the room, I called Sarah Thompson's office and was relieved when they offered me an appointment that afternoon. I told them I would be there. For the rest of the morning, Amanda alternated between cajoling and pressuring me, suggesting various retirement communities that wouldn't be so bad, and reminding me of the legal consequences if the debts went unpaid. I remained non-committal, simply saying I needed more time to think. After lunch, I told her I was going out for a while. "Where?" she demanded. "Just to see Jack." I lied. "I need some air, and he invited me over." Amanda looked suspicious, but didn't try to stop me. I drove directly to Sarah Thompson's office, a small but professional space in a converted Victorian house downtown. Sarah was younger than I expected, maybe in her early 40s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She listened intently as I explained my situation, taking notes and occasionally asking clarifying questions. Mr. Thompson, she said when I finished, what your daughter has done is criminal. Identity theft, forgery, financial exploitation of an elder. These are serious offenses. I don't want my daughter to go to jail, I admitted. Despite everything, she's still my child. Sarah nodded sympathetically. That's a common feeling among victims of family financial abuse. But you need to understand something. If you don't take action, you will be held responsible for these debts. Your credit will be ruined. You could lose your home anyway, through legal action by the creditors. Your retirement will be destroyed. What are my options? I asked. We file a police report documenting the identity theft. We notify all creditors that the debts were fraudulently incurred. We dispute every charge, every loan. We freeze your credit to prevent further damage. And yes, your daughter will likely face legal consequences. But there may be options for diversion programs, especially if she has no prior criminal record. I took a deep breath. And if I don't report her? Sarah's expression was grave. Then you're looking at financial ruin. At your age, on a fixed income, you'd never recover. As I drove home, my mind was racing. I knew what I needed to do, but the thought of taking legal action against my own child was almost unbearable. Yet the alternative was accepting financial devastation caused by her betrayal. When I arrived home, I was surprised to find the front door unlocked. I was certain I had locked it before leaving. Entering cautiously, I called out for Amanda. "Upstairs," she called back. I found her in my home office, rifling through my filing cabinet. Papers were scattered across the desk and floor. "What are you doing?" I demanded. Amanda barely looked up. "Looking for the deed to the house. We'll need it for the sale." "I told you I'm not selling," I said, anger rising in me. "And you have no right to go through my personal papers." "Don't be dramatic, Dad. I'm just trying to get things organized." I looked around the room and noticed other things out of place. My desk drawers were open. The small lockbox where I kept important documents was on the desk, its contents spilled out. "You've been searching my house," I realized aloud. "What are you looking for?" "The deed, like I said," she replied too quickly. "And my bank statements, my investment records, the key to my safe deposit box." I gestured to the items strewn across the desk. Amanda straightened up, dropping any pretense of innocence. "We need to know what assets you have. To address the debt situation." "Get out of my office," I said quietly, my voice shaking with anger. "Now!" For a moment I thought she might refuse, but then she brushed past me into the hallway. I followed her downstairs, where she grabbed her purse from the couch. "I talked to my realtor while you were out," she said casually, as if she hadn't just been caught ransacking my home. "She thinks we could list the house for $520,000. That would cover the debt and leave you some money for a small place." The audacity took my breath away. "You arranged to sell my house without my permission, while I was out." "I got a preliminary valuation," she corrected. "She'll need to see the inside before listing, of course." "There will be no listing, Amanda. I'm not selling my home." Her eyes narrowed. "This is happening whether you like it or not. I've already spoken to a lawyer about having you declared incompetent if you refuse to cooperate. You're an elderly man who just had a heart attack. It wouldn't be difficult." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "You would do that to me, have me declared incompetent?" "I'm trying to solve a problem," she said coldly. "If you won't be reasonable, I'll do what needs to be done." In that moment, looking into my daughter's eyes, I saw no love, no remorse, not even a flicker of the child I had raised. I saw only a predator, calculating and cold. "Get out of my house," I said quietly. "Dad, be reasonable." "Get out," I shouted, surprising even myself with the force of my anger. "Get out now, or I'm calling the police." Amanda grabbed her coat, her face a mask of indignation. "You're making a huge mistake. When the debt collectors start coming, don't call me for help." "I wouldn't dream of it," I assured her. As she stalked to the door, she turned for one final shot. "You're going to lose the house anyway. At least my way you get to keep some dignity." The door slammed behind her, and I collapsed onto the couch, the strength suddenly leaving my legs. My own daughter had threatened to have me declared incompetent. She had been planning to sell my home out from under me. The betrayal was complete and devastating. I sat in silence as the afternoon light faded into evening, feeling the full weight of what had happened. My child, the person I had sacrificed everything for, had become someone I no longer recognized. Someone who saw me not as a father, but as an obstacle, a resource to be exploited and discarded. In that darkest moment, with my heart physically and emotionally broken, I knew I had to fight back. Not just for my financial survival, but for my dignity, for Laura's memory, for the truth. I had lost my daughter. But I wasn't going to lose everything else, too. The next morning I called Sarah Thompson and told her I wanted to proceed with filing a police report for identity theft. She explained the process would be difficult, both legally and emotionally, but assured me she would guide me through every step. "The first thing we need to do is gather evidence," Sarah advised. "All the fraudulent accounts, the collection notices, everything that shows these debts weren't incurred by you." I spent the day organizing the papers Amanda had left behind, creating a timeline of her fraud. The scope of her deception was even larger than I had initially realized. There were accounts I hadn't even seen before, loans taken out in my name that she hadn't mentioned. Sarah referred me to a forensic financial investigator who specialized in identity theft cases. His job would be to trace every fraudulent transaction, documenting how the money was spent and proving I had not benefited from any of it. "What about Amanda?" I asked Sarah during our second meeting. "What will happen to her?" "That depends on several factors," Sarah explained gently. "The total amount stolen, her criminal history, whether she cooperates. Most likely, she would face felony charges of identity theft and elder financial abuse. But first offenders sometimes qualify for diversion programs, especially if restitution is part of the agreement." The thought of my daughter with a criminal record still pained me deeply. But the alternative, allowing her to destroy my financial future and potentially have me declared incompetent, was unthinkable. Sarah also helped me secure a temporary restraining order preventing Amanda from accessing my finances or attempting to sell my property. We froze my credit with all 3 major bureaus to prevent any new accounts from being opened in my name. "You should also check your home for any important documents or valuables," Sarah advised. "Based on what you've told me about her searching your house, she may have taken things or made copies of sensitive information." That evening, I did a thorough inventory of my home. Most things seemed in place, though I couldn't be certain Amanda hadn't photographed documents before returning them to their original locations. I changed all my online passwords and ordered new credit cards to replace the ones Amanda might have recorded. As I was checking my bedroom, I remembered something I hadn't thought about in years: the hidden safe. When Laura and I first bought the house, we installed a small fireproof safe behind a false panel in our bedroom closet. It was where we kept our most important documents, Laura's modest jewelry and emergency cash. After Laura died, I had rarely opened it, the memories too painful. I moved aside the hanging clothes and pressed the hidden catch that released the panel. The safe was still there, its combination lock untouched. I doubted Amanda even knew it existed, as we had never shown it to her. I dialed the combination, my hands trembling slightly. Inside were exactly what I remembered: our marriage certificate, Laura's will, the deed to the house, and a small velvet box containing Laura's grandmother's pearl necklace that she had worn on our wedding day. But there was something else, something I had forgotten. a sealed envelope with my name written in Laura's handwriting. I took it out carefully, my heart racing. When had she put this here? What could it contain? I opened the envelope, gently unfolding a letter dated just 2 months before she died. My dearest Gerard, it began in Laura's familiar script. If you're reading this, I'm no longer with you, and for that I'm so sorry. There's something I've kept from you, not out of deception, but out of love. For the past 15 years, I've been putting aside money from my part-time bookkeeping jobs. I wanted to create a safety net for us, something that was just ours, that could never be touched by anyone else. The letter went on to explain that Laura had opened a separate savings account at a small local bank across town. She had been depositing a portion of her earnings there, consistently letting the interest compound over the years. I know you would have told me to spend it on myself, on things I wanted, she wrote. But what I wanted most was security for us, especially as we grew older. The account now has just over $380,000. Use it wisely, my love. Use it to take care of yourself when I can't be there to do it for you. Enclosed with the letter was a bank book for an account I never knew existed, along with the account details and a signed letter authorizing me to access it. $380,000. Not enough to cover the entire fraudulent debt, but more than enough to fight it. Enough to hire the best lawyers, the best forensic accountants. Enough to ensure I wouldn't lose everything while battling to clear my name. Tears streamed down my face as I held Laura's letter. Even after death, she was still protecting me, still taking care of me. I could almost hear her voice. Use it to take care of yourself when I can't be there to do it for you. The next day, I went to the bank Laura had mentioned. The account was still there, untouched since her death. The balance had grown to just over $395,000 with accumulated interest. I called Sarah immediately to tell her about the discovery. "This is excellent news, Mr. Thompson," she said. "With these resources, we can mount a much stronger defense. We can hire additional experts if needed, and you won't have to worry about legal fees depleting your retirement savings." "I don't want to use this money to pay Amanda's fraudulent debts," I told her firmly. "That's not what Laura saved it for." "And you won't have to," Sarah assured me. "We're going to use it to fight the fraud, not surrender to it. This gives us the breathing room to do this right." Over the next few weeks, we built our case methodically. The forensic accountant documented every fraudulent account, every unauthorized transaction. Sarah filed formal disputes with each creditor, attaching the police report and evidence of identity theft. Some creditors were more cooperative than others. A few immediately closed the fraudulent accounts upon receiving our documentation. Others pushed back, insisting I was responsible regardless of who had actually incurred the debt. For those, Sarah prepared for more aggressive legal action. We also reported Amanda's threats to have me declared incompetent. My doctor provided a statement confirming I was of sound mind and fully capable of managing my own affairs. Jack and other friends submitted affidavits testifying to my mental acuity. Throughout this process, Amanda made several attempts to contact me. She left voicemails alternating between pleading and threatening. She sent emails warning me that I was making things worse for both of us. I forwarded everything to Sarah and did not respond directly. Then, after about a month of silence, Amanda's lawyer reached out to Sarah. He wanted to discuss a mutual resolution to our dispute. Sarah, with my permission, agreed to a meeting. The stage was set for a final confrontation, one that would determine not just my financial future, but whether justice would be served for Laura's stolen legacy. The meeting was scheduled for a Tuesday morning at Sarah's office. I arrived early, my stomach in knots. Despite everything Amanda had done, she was still my daughter, and the thought of facing her across a conference table with lawyers present felt surreal and painful. Sarah met me in the reception area, her confident smile providing some reassurance. Remember, Mr. Thompson, you hold the cards here. The evidence is overwhelmingly in your favor. We're here to negotiate, but from a position of strength. Amanda arrived precisely at 10 o'clock, accompanied by a sleek, expensive-looking lawyer in his 50s. She was dressed in a conservative gray suit, her expression carefully neutral. She didn't meet my eyes as we were all shown into the conference room. After introductions, Amanda's lawyer, Martin Green, began with what seemed like a prepared speech. We understand there's been an unfortunate misunderstanding regarding certain financial transactions, he said smoothly. My client acknowledges that she may have overstepped boundaries in attempting to help manage her elderly father's finances during a difficult time. Sarah cut him off firmly. Mr. Green, let's be clear from the outset. This was not a misunderstanding or overstepping boundaries. Ms. Thompson committed systematic identity theft and elder financial abuse against her father over a period of years, totaling $450,000. We have documented every fraudulent account, every forged signature, and every dollar misappropriated. So let's dispense with the euphemisms. Green's smile tightened. Of course. We're here to find a resolution that works for everyone. What exactly are you proposing? Sarah asked. My client is prepared to acknowledge her role in these financial matters, Green said carefully. In exchange, Mr. Thompson would agree not to pursue criminal charges. The debts would be restructured under a payment plan that my client would take responsibility for, though they would remain technically in Mr. Thompson's name to avoid complications with the creditors. Sarah looked at him incredulously. So your client commits multiple felonies, and in exchange for not being prosecuted, she'll promise to pay back what she stole while the victim remains legally responsible for the debt. That's your offer. Green shifted uncomfortably. We believe it's a reasonable compromise that keeps this unfortunate situation within the family. Throughout this exchange, Amanda remained silent, still avoiding my gaze. I wondered if she felt any remorse at all, or if she was simply annoyed at being caught. Before we continue, I said suddenly, speaking for the first time, I'd like a moment alone with my daughter. Sarah looked at me questioningly. Are you sure? I nodded. Just 5 minutes. After some discussion, the lawyers agreed to step out, leaving Amanda and me alone in the conference room. Dad, she began immediately, her voice taking on the cajoling tone I'd come to recognize as manipulation. This has all gotten out of hand. I made some mistakes, I admit that, but we can fix this together as a family. Family. I repeated the word, feeling hollow. Is that how you see us, as family? Of course, she said, reaching for my hand across the table. I pulled back. Then why did you steal from me? Why did you threaten to have me declared incompetent? Why did you try to take my home? She sighed dramatically. I was desperate. The debts were piling up. I wasn't thinking clearly. I studied my daughter's face, searching for any sign of the person I thought I had raised. Do you even understand what you did, not just the fraud, but the betrayal? Dad, please, she said, her eyes finally meeting mine. Let's just solve this and move on. No one needs to go to jail. No one needs to have their life ruined. My life nearly was ruined, I reminded her. You didn't seem concerned about that when you were forging my signature. A flash of irritation crossed her face. What do you want from me? I've admitted I was wrong. I'm trying to make it right. I reached into my jacket pocket and removed a small key. Do you know what this is? She looked at it blankly. A key to the safe your mother and I kept hidden in our bedroom closet. The one you never knew about. Confusion flickered across her face. What does that have to do with anything? I want to show you something. I brought it with me today. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a metal box, setting it on the table between us. I inserted the key and opened it, revealing a stack of bank documents and Laura's letter. Your mother left me something when she died. Something she never told anyone about, not even me, until the end. I handed Amanda the letter. She read it quickly, her eyes widening as she reached the part about the money. Mom had a secret account, she asked incredulously, with nearly $400,000, money she saved for 15 years working extra jobs, setting aside a little each month for our security and old age. 400,000, Amanda repeated, a calculating look crossing her face. That would almost cover the debt. I took the letter back, my point made. That's not what the money is for. Your mother didn't spend 15 years saving so that you could steal and lie with no consequences. What are you going to do with it then? She asked. I've already started. I've hired the best lawyers, the best forensic accountants. I'm fighting every fraudulent charge, every account you opened in my name. I will not pay a penny of the debt you created. Amanda's expression hardened. You'd spend Mom's money just to punish me, to see your own daughter go to jail. No, I said quietly. I'm spending it to protect myself from you. There's a difference. I closed the box and returned it to my briefcase. The lawyers can come back in now. I've seen what I needed to see. Amanda's face flushed with anger. You're making a huge mistake. If you do this, if you press charges, we're done. You'll never see me again. I looked at my daughter sadly. I lost you a long time ago, Amanda. I just didn't know it until now. I called the lawyers back in. Sarah resumed her seat beside me, giving me a questioning look. I nodded slightly, indicating I was ready to proceed. Here's our counteroffer, Sarah stated clearly. Ms. Thompson will provide a full written confession detailing every instance of fraud and identity theft. She will cooperate fully with all creditors to have the fraudulent accounts removed from Mr. Thompson's credit history. She will enroll in and complete a court-approved financial counseling program. Green frowned. And in exchange, Sarah continued, Mr. Thompson will recommend to the prosecutor that Ms. Thompson be considered for a pretrial diversion program rather than incarceration, provided she makes full restitution over time according to a court-approved payment plan. Diversion program, Amanda interjected, looking at her lawyer. What does that mean? It means you avoid jail time if you meet certain conditions. Green explained quietly. It's actually a very generous offer, considering the evidence they have. A tense silence filled the room as Amanda and her lawyer conferred in whispers. Finally, Green spoke. We need time to consider this proposal. You have 24 hours, Sarah replied firmly. After that, we proceed with full criminal and civil complaints, no negotiation. As Amanda and her lawyer prepared to leave, I reached into my briefcase once more and removed a small object wrapped in tissue paper. Amanda, I called softly. She turned reluctantly. I held out the package. This was your mother's. She would have wanted you to have it. Amanda took it hesitantly, unwrapping it to reveal Laura's pearl necklace. Mom's pearls, she whispered, a genuine emotion finally breaking through her facade. She wore them on our wedding day, I said, and the day you were born. For a brief moment, I saw a flicker of the daughter. I remembered a crack in the hard shell she had built around herself. Her eyes glistened with what might have been tears. Thank you, she said quietly, clutching the necklace. As she turned to leave, I added, whatever happens with the legal issues, Amanda, you're still my daughter. That will never change. But there must be consequences, and there must be truth. Your mother would have expected nothing less. Amanda paused at the door, the pearls still in her hand, but didn't respond. Then she was gone. 20 hours later, Green called Sarah. Amanda would accept our terms. The following week, Amanda signed a full confession and began the process of working with creditors to remove the fraudulent accounts from my credit history. The district attorney reviewing the case approved her for a diversion program that included community service financial counseling and a strict restitution schedule. I watched from a distance as my daughter faced the consequences of her actions, feeling both vindicated and deeply saddened. The little girl I had raised was gone, replaced by a woman I barely recognized. Yet in agreeing to the diversion program and accepting responsibility, however reluctantly, perhaps there was hope for redemption. As for me, I began the slow process of rebuilding my life, knowing that while the financial damage could be repaired, the emotional wounds would take much longer to heal. 2 years have passed since that fateful day when Amanda handed me the envelope containing $450,000 of debt. Much has changed both in my circumstances and within my heart. The legal process was lengthy and often painful. Each fraudulent account required separate documentation disputes and, in some cases, legal action to remove from my credit report. Sarah Thompson and her team were tireless advocates, using Laura's saved money exactly as I had hoped to protect me, rather than to bail out Amanda. In the end, we were largely successful. Most creditors faced with overwhelming evidence of identity theft and the prospect of criminal prosecution, if they persisted, agreed to remove the fraudulent debts from my name. A few required court intervention, but those cases too were eventually resolved in my favor. Amanda completed her diversion program and avoided jail time, though she now has a record that will follow her. The restitution payments come regularly, small amounts that will take many years to repay the total she stole. I don't count on that money, viewing it more as a symbol of accountability than financial compensation. We speak occasionally, brief, awkward conversations that dance around the deeper issues between us. There is politeness now, where there once was presumed intimacy. I have accepted that our relationship may never return to what I once imagined it to be, but at least there is honesty where before there was deception. The months following Amanda's confession were the darkest of my life. Despite knowing I had done the right thing legally, the emotional aftermath of betrayal by my only child left me deeply depressed. I found myself alone in my house, surrounded by memories, but isolated from human connection. It was Jack who finally intervened, refusing to let me sink further into isolation. "Laura wouldn't want this for you," he said bluntly, during one of his increasingly frequent visits. "She saved that money so you could live, not just exist." At his insistence, I joined a support group for victims of financial elder abuse. There, I found people who understood exactly what I had experienced, the unique pain of betrayal by family members. Listening to their stories, sharing my own, I began to realize I wasn't alone in my experience. Through the group, I met Martha, a woman in her 60s, whose son had emptied her bank accounts to feed a gambling addiction. Like me, she had taken the difficult step of holding her child legally accountable while struggling with the parental instinct to protect. Martha and I became friends, then close friends, providing each other support through the hard days. We weren't romantic, just two people who understood each other's pain and were determined to help each other heal. "The hardest part," Martha told me once, "is accepting that loving someone doesn't mean allowing them to destroy you. Setting boundaries isn't the opposite of love. Sometimes it's the highest form of it." Her words stayed with me, helping me reconcile the seemingly contradictory feelings of loving my daughter while holding her accountable for her actions. I began to understand that true love isn't permitting someone to harm others without consequences. It's wanting them to be their best self even when that path is difficult. With this new perspective, I found myself ready to engage with life again. I volunteered at a community center teaching woodworking to at-risk teens, finding joy in passing on the skills that had sustained me throughout my working life. Seeing the pride in a young person's eyes when they completed their first project reminded me of why I had loved my work as a carpenter. I managed Laura's legacy carefully. After the legal expenses, there was still a substantial amount left. I used some to make needed repairs to our home, knowing Laura would have approved. The rest remains invested, a safety net, just as she intended. Last month I received a letter from Amanda. Not the usual brief note accompanying her restitution payment, but a longer, more thoughtful communication. She wrote about her therapy, about coming to terms with her actions and their consequences. For the first time, her words conveyed genuine remorse rather than self-pity. "I don't expect forgiveness," she wrote, "but I want you to know that I understand now what I did to you, and I am truly sorry. Not just for getting caught, but for betraying the trust of the person who always believed in me." I read the letter several times, searching for manipulation between the lines. I found none, just the halting words of someone finally confronting their own actions with clarity. I haven't responded yet. Forgiveness, I've learned, isn't something that can be forced or rushed. It comes in its own time, if it comes at all. What I do know is that I no longer carry the burning anger that once consumed me. In its place is a sad acceptance and perhaps the first tender shoots of compassion. Through this painful journey, I've learned lessons I never wanted, but needed to understand. I've learned that love without boundaries isn't love at all, but enablement. I've learned that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, but necessary. And perhaps most importantly, I've learned that it's never too late to rebuild, to find new purpose and new connections. The house that Amanda wanted to sell, the home that holds so many memories of Laura, remains mine. I walk through its rooms now, not with grief, but with gratitude, thankful for the life Laura and I built here, for the love we shared, and for her final gift that protected me when I needed it most. As I sit in Laura's garden, watching the flowers she planted years ago continue to bloom season after season, I think about the nature of legacy. Laura's legacy wasn't just the money she saved, but the example she set of quiet determination, of planning for the future while fully living in the present. My legacy won't be defined by Amanda's actions or my response to them, but by how I choose to live each day going forward. I've come to understand that the most important house we build in this life isn't made of wood and stone, but of the values we uphold and the boundaries we establish. It's a house with a foundation of self-respect, walls of healthy limits, and doors that can open to reconciliation when and if it's truly earned. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved, if you've had to make the painful choice between enabling destructive behavior or standing firm for what's right, know that you're not alone. I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. How did you balance love with necessary boundaries? What helped you heal from family betrayal? If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and recovery. Share with someone who might need to be reminded that it's never too late to rebuild, to find new purpose, and to create a life of dignity after betrayal. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember, the strongest houses are often built after the storm has passed, when we understand exactly what foundation is needed to withstand the next one. Take care of yourselves and each other.